What's up guys? So I'm going to show you data from an API using Redux Saga and to update your Redux state and then show that on the screen. Update your components. This I am going to be using the random user API. This is so you can go to this URL yourself and you'll be able to get this data. Now if you don't know how to set up Redux Saga, I have a video showing you how to with Create React App that I'll link. So let's jump right into this. So I'm just going to and here's my project that I have Redux Saga with. So what I want to do is I would like to create, I'm going to replace this Hello World Saga with a Saga. So in my actions here, I'm going to just switch this up and replace Hello World I need. So request API. So same thing here. So this is what I'm going to name it. And then to receive it, I'm going to say API data. And then request is what and receive is what I'm going to call on my my Saga over here. So here it's going to be data that we were going to be receiving. Going to pass the data here, and that's just going to get rendered. So I receive API data. So in our Saga here, instead of API, this is going to be receive API. Take latest. I'm going to listen for whenever we want API data. I'll receive API data. Well, actually, not the action. We don't want to call it here. We want to call this function here. So I'll call it API data. So here, call this get API data. So what we're going to do here is actually, here's our action. We don't have any parameters, but we could pass parameters to, and then we would have that in our action here. We could get any parameters. And I'm going to get, so this is going to be data back. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create called API from API. So let's create that here, and this is where we're going to fetch. And then we're going to say fetch data. So yield call in your Saga, and you pass any parameters you want. This is not going to need any parameters. Anything you want fetch data needs to do its thing. We're at the data, and then we're going to call receive API data. And I'm going to put data in. Create a new action. I'm just going to actually console error if we get an error. But you might want to, I don't know, and you try to log in by doing a fetch to the database to your API, and they don't log in successfully, you can show an error message logging. But for now, we'll just console log. So we just need to implement fetch data here, so that way we actually, and then we can call this. So in this guy right here, we're going to export fetch data. And this is just a function that and return the data. So I'm going to create this in async function, and we're just going to use fetch in here. So we're going to say const response is equal to await fetch. So we'll get the response from this, and then we're just going to return response to JSON. I think it's to JSON. It's an underscore. If we get an error, we know. But to do is to wrap this in a try catch. And if there is an error, right. So to JSON we want to await as well. We'll say data is equal to await, and then we return data. Alright, we're awaiting the data, and then we're just passing it back to our Saga. It just puts it with the receive API. So in our reducer here, this up, I'm going to call this data. Let's change this to be called data. Open this up. So now instead of receive hello world, we're going to say receive API. And text here is going to be data. And all we're going to do is pass the data back to the state. And we're going to replace the state here. Yeah, that looks pretty good. So home here, we are going to I'm going to put that here. And then our state is just going to be data. So here we're going to request API data, and then here we have access to it, right? So with what's it called? With dot props dot data, and then we can this is just a JSON object here. We can do whatever you want. So I'm going to pull out the results here, get the first result, and then I'm going to grab gender, name, email. Let's show some. Put these side by side so we can see what we're working with. All right. So I'm going to do data.results. I'm going to get the first one. So we grab this, map this if you wanted to. And then, actually, you know what? It's way better to just map this. Let's just map this. So props.data.results. And then I'm going to create here my symbol. So I'm going to call this a person function. Takes xi and returns some HTML. So I'm going to pass in person here. We'll do a div. The key is going to be, I'm going to get the ID here, so ID value. So x.id.value for the key. A key like that, then to use the index here for better performance. And alright, so let's why not? We can show the gender here. So x.gender. And this is just displaying it. We can show whatever we want. And also good to note that when we call .results, this is going to be null. So actually, okay, yeah, let's explain how that works. So x.gender, we'll call it, we don't care. Well, sure, why not? Let's show his last name too. You could go and just show whatever you want. Let's just do an image tag to, with the source being x.id. Sorry, not id. Being x.picture. Let's do medium. Alright, so hopefully that will show. But alright, so what I was saying is that reformatted. Before, it's going to render once without, here's my sagas. Okay, so it's going to render once. No, I actually want to show this. It's going to render once without the data. So without the data, the state is an empty object. So this is going to render with an empty object. So when we call here dot results, that's going to be null. And then when we call dot map option. So one way to handle this is to say or empty object. Or you could say cont results default value is this is equal to this. Oops. I think this looks a little cleaner, so I'm just gonna do it like this. But either one of these would work. The results here. All right, let's get. Gonna go ahead and close that. And all right, let's see this guy in action. All right, so I have a syntax error here. Export get const function. All right. Anything else? So in my home, I need to call. So this stuff because person is inside the class. So in an error, let's see what's going on. Receive API fine to ignore an action you must explicit. Okay, so dot is not a thing. I had a feeling it wasn't. I don't think it's like that. I think it's like this. If that try lowercase j, if that doesn't work. Alright, I think this is what we'll just Google it. Really, that didn't work either? Screw Googling it. Let's first do response. If it's the stuff that I want to figure it out, then we'll do it. Proto. Okay, it's just JSON. So refresh. So get rid of that. And when you refresh, it'll do debug because it's every time you do an API call, it's in a person. All right, we're done with this video, guys. This is the basic setup. This is how you should structure pretty much your sagas. So you'll have a request and a receive for each saga. This is how I like to structure it. You don't have to do it this way, but a request and a receive for each saga. You could have also a failed version of receive. We're creating two of these, and we're going to request from our component. So here's us calling request. It's going to go to our saga. We're going to listen for that right here, and then we're going to call our function. And here we're going to call our API and do our fetch. This is going to be asynchronous. Whenever it returns, we're going to wait for it, and when it returns, action. And this action is going to go to the state. This is going to get called. It's going to return the data, and then our component is going to see data on the screen. So actually, the first time this renders is a blank screen, and then this shows up. So let me show you guys, because this is component did mount data. So this is asynchronous, so nothing is showed at first. So say results. So if it's 0, we'll show that. Otherwise, we'll show an H1 that says loading. So that's one way we could do it. And you could show a loading indicator. So now for a split second, maybe you can see that loading pops up there while it's loading, and then we get from the API. The faster the API, the slower you see that loading . But anyway, that's it for this video, guys. That's the basics of Redux Saga. It's actually not too complicated to set this up. Watching, guys, and I'll see you guys in the next video.